to the Experience Darden podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share my recent conversation with Kelly Okun. Kelly is a second-year student in our full-time MBA class of 2025, and she and I recently connected to talk about her background, her decision to pursue an MBA, what led her to Darden, how she's pursued her entrepreneurial interest during her time here at Darden, and so much more. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. And as always, if this episode is helpful for you, please like this episode and subscribe to the Experience Darden podcast so you never miss an update. And remember, you can always check the episode description for links to Darden blogs, social channels, and more. And now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Kelly Okun. Kelly, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks, Brett. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. I'm preparing for this. I was reflecting on our conversation, about a year or so ago when you were a prospective student, getting the idea that maybe you wanted to go to business school and kind of trying to figure out which format of the Darden MBA made the most sense for you. Am I right? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, that day stands out to me. It was April 28th. I thought all hope was lost of going to Darden because the part-time application had passed, and that's what I was looking at. And I had a call in the books with you, and I was like, you know what? Maybe it'll be worth, chatting, seeing if maybe Darden's somewhere I should look the next year in case things don't work out for me doing this so last minute. And 2 days later I applied. So it's a pretty crazy, much of a whirlwind of a story.
Well, it goes that way sometimes. So, people think about this step for many years oftentimes, and then, the decision to apply and the process of applying can also oftentimes move very, very quickly. So we're thrilled you're here. You're in a full-time MBA program in Charlottesville. And so before we get too much further into the conversation, just how are you doing? How's everything going?
I'm loving it. It's great being back on grounds. I was still here over the summer in Charlottesville, but it's really fun being back in Darden, seeing all the new first years coming in, and it's crazy how much of a difference a year makes.
And I will mention for our listeners, we talked a little bit about the Olympics. You were just recently at the Olympics. How was that?
It was incredible. I've always been so inspired by the Olympians, by their athletes. They inspired me to pursue sports. And so to see it again when I was older and could appreciate it even more was awesome.
Now, what's it like to be in person for the competition? I've only ever seen it on television. I've never attended the Olympics myself.
Honestly, it's still sinking in. When you get there, it's sinking in. And even now, a couple weeks later, it's still sinking in. But I think it really hits when you go into certain arenas and then you watch the recap on TV later, or you see another event taking place there and you're like, I was there. I had no idea. But just being able to see the talent of all these incredible athletes in person, there were times where I just didn't know where to look because there's just incredible sports happening everywhere.
A lot of conversation about how Paris was really taken with the Olympic Games, and maybe a group of people who can be a little cool at times, maybe a little resistant to being enthusiastic about something, and very much caught Olympic fever.
Oh, definitely. There are tons of France jerseys. My friend and I even got one. It was just a really fun atmosphere. And even when we were eating at restaurants nearby, maybe they were just being nice because we were tourists, but everyone allowed us to test out our little bit of French that we knew. And it was just a fun atmosphere.
All right. Well, Kelly, let's talk a little bit more about you and your background. So what did you do before coming to Darden?
Oh boy. So I had about 8 or 9 years between undergrad and Darden. I spent 5 of those years playing golf professionally and doing so I played on various tours around the world. And while I was simultaneously doing some marketing consulting, some freelance writing, just trying to build up what that next chapter could look like when I knew my body would eventually give out. And it did pay off. I ended up going to a golf marketing agency based out of DC. Really enjoyed my time there, spent 4 years there. Didn't want to leave that job, which is why I was looking at part-time and executive programs initially. But that experience, just being able to help all of these different clients build the game from outside the ropes, that was just really fulfilling to me and definitely inspired me to keep on that track.
So you mentioned you played on several professional tours. You play in the U.S., abroad. What did that look like?
Yeah, both. So I was on the LPGA's qualifying tour. It was then the Symetra Tour. Now it's called the Epson Tour. And then around the US, I also played various mini tours and state opens. But my favorite playing opportunity has to have been playing on the Australian LPGA, being able to spend a couple months over there, meeting all new people, playing in what was our off season since our hemispheres are opposite. Was just a really great way to stay just really in shape during the off season that we have in the US.
Yeah, some legendary golf courses there, and the Sand Belt, and I mean,
Hmm.
a country that seems very, very passionate about golf. I've had some very famous golfers come from
They
Australia.
do. And I don't know if you saw in the Olympics, actually, there was a brother-sister pair in the Olympics for Australia on the men's and the women's team. So I thought that was a fun fact.
That's awesome. So, how did you decide you wanted to pursue an MBA?
Yeah, so when I was at my marketing agency, I was also assigned to work at our golf media property at the time called Morning Read. It was just a B2C newsletter telling consumers about tour news, gear, apparel, stuff like that. And it was originally just a newsletter. And right before I started working there, they just built the website for it. So I was part of this three-person team tasked with building it and bringing in well, I was doing sales, I was doing ad operations, you name it. But what I really loved doing was producing shows and being able to bring in my friends that I used to play with who wanted to sort of start their media presence. So I was able to bring a lot of friends on to start video series, podcasts, things like that. And eventually, I was interviewing a friend of mine who had just gotten her LPGA tour card again after having a kid, which I just think is absolutely incredible. I love seeing all the moms on tour. But I realized that there's more that I could be doing with this relationship. And at that time, we were in an editorial partnership with Sports Illustrated. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to use this name and I'm going to work with my contacts at the LPGA and try to get some more light shown on the women, playing. The media coverage, I think they only get well, in general, women's sports only get 15% of media coverage. So I was like, anything I could do to help get them get more exposure and get them more opportunities for sponsorship. Uh, I realized that was my purpose. And eventually Sports Illustrated bought our property, which was great in that I got to learn and work with them quite a bit. But it also meant that I lost my access to my media property. So um, I realized I did ask Sports Illustrated, I was like, hey, let me come over with you and build out this women's sports idea and build it out some more. But they chose to go a different direction. And I realized that if I kept waiting for someone to hire me to do that, it would be too late. So I started seeing business school as an opportunity to launch my own business.
All right. And it feels like I mean, obviously golf has gone through a real boom here in the US, at least post COVID. Lots of people playing
Mhm.
golf, lots of interest in golf. I imagine that was helpful as you were getting everything started.
It was, yeah, and, so I had to do a lot of research, and thanks to Darden, I had access to a lot of that data, but we were seeing that 18 to 35-year-olds were the largest demographic of golfers in the last year, and what was really exciting to me was that female golfers were the fastest growing segment. So I think COVID did its part. I know some people think it plateaued a bit in recent years, people signing up for club memberships and stuff like that just because other activities are open. It's not just golf that's a COVID safe activity anymore. Um, but I think there's something caught and it's becoming a younger game, which I'm really excited to see.
And it feels like there's a lot of exciting personalities, young personalities on both tours, PGA and the LPGA. See Nelly Corda on TV all the time, and any number of other folks also pop up. You watch the Golf Channel, you get a fair amount of exposure to this, but some of the stars are
Mhm.
actually bigger than just the golf lane.
Yep, definitely. Nelly Corda having 5 consecutive wins in the row. She was tied with, I know, Annika Sorenstam and I believe Nancy Lopez, but I would have to double check that. But just an incredible feat. And at the same time, Scotty Scheffler won, I think, 4 out of 5 of his starts at around the same time. So just this golf that's being played and then having them all, tee off at the Olympics too. And Scotty just kept his run going. I hope the sport's gaining as much momentum as I hope it is because I think it's fun to watch.
All right, so you come to Darden.
Mhm.
What is it about Darden that really resonated with you?
I actually realized that one of my classmates' sisters, and technically she was a classmate of mine too, was at Darden. We had grown up 2 streets away from each other. So I've known her since she was in 1st grade and I was in 4th grade. So I had no idea she was here. We had lost touch after high school. We went different ways. But um, she was an entrepreneur here at Darden, and it's Ellie Jameson. She co-founded Play Henry with Grace Collins, and she was telling me all about the resources here that she was able to take advantage of, the Women's Founders Group like KPI, and then of course the iLab incubator, and how she spent her summer just really having the time and resources to build her business. So as she told me all of that, I knew Darden was definitely the right place for me. And I mean, I came to business school specifically to launch a business, and I mean, how could I say no to all that help?
Yeah, it's amazing. Play Henry has been on our podcast, and I gathered that things are really starting to happen for their business. The pickleball boom. We talked about golf becoming popular. I think pickleball may be the fastest growing sport right now in the United States.
I'd believe it. I'd believe it. I know I'm wondering, when do I have enough golf so I can start bringing on, pickleball and tennis and whatever sport might be the next best fit.
All right. So, what was the adjustment to business school like? We talk with folks here on the podcast a lot about just getting settled in Charlottesville and getting started as a first year student. There's a lot of things happening all at the same time. So, what was that adjustment like for you?
Yeah, so I had mostly grown up in Florida. I was in Northern Virginia for a short stint. I got there 2 months before COVID, so I didn't really feel like I got to experience it. So I was coming down from remote work in Connecticut, and I was just so happy to be in an atmosphere where I was in person with people again. I didn't realize what a toll remote work was taking on me, and even my mom was like, "You sound like yourself again. You're among people. You're around people with similar ambition and values, and really just trying to make the most of these 2 years to better themselves and their lives and their families." So I was really thankful, and I think I mean, I was terrified of accounting and finance. You can ask anyone. That was one of the reasons it took me so long to admit that an MBA would be a good idea. But um, what I realized was I took Darden before Darden, DBD, and about halfway through, I was like, "This is really hard, but you know what? I'm doing it, and we're surviving, and it's fine." And I think that really set the tone for the rest of the year. I knew it was going to be hard, but I knew it'd be worth it and doable.
Yeah, that's one of the amazing things about an MBA program. You come and all of a sudden you meet 335, 350 people who are all investing in themselves, all taking the step, all asking questions about where they'd like to go with their life and career. Hard to do that out there in the world, just to meet so many talented people all at the same time.
Yeah, and, something my uncle had gotten his MBA, not at Darden, unfortunately, but a while back, and he said one of the best reasons to go full time is that everyone you're in class with, they're gonna be your future business partners, and I really felt that here, even with just within my section, and I know everyone's biased about their section, but I was in section C and still am, and I still think they're absolutely amazing. But we have I have so many different friend groups even within this section where it's like, "Oh, that would be a fun business to do together there," or, "Hey, maybe you could help me with this over here." And everyone's just so collaborative and willing to help. It's just it was a surprising atmosphere from what I've heard about general MBA programs that are very cutthroat and competitive. But what someone told me here is that the competitiveness gets allocated to Darden Cup, and we do get competitive in that sense, but in the classroom, it is very collaborative.
We like to talk with people about their sections on the podcast because this is a core part of the first year experience. As folks may know who are listening to this episode, as you go through the core, you're divided into sections, section A, B, C, D, E. These sections are the students you'll take the core classes with, and you'll also work with them and compete with them as part of the Darden Cup, which is this year-long series of. It's not all athletic activities. There's things like trivia. There's a talent show kind of thing. It runs the gamut. So there's lots of ways for different people to participate. But Kelly, what do you enjoy about being in Section C?
Gosh, I think I don't know how they divide us up into our sections, but I don't know how they do it, but I feel like our personalities meshed. And hearing all the different backgrounds too. So it wasn't based on similarity in where we came from, but I would love seeing everyone's contributions in class. No one was really afraid to speak up and share their experience. I remember in my opening week, and I know it looks a little different now, we had one of our vets. Well, I guess he's still technically going back to the military afterwards, but one of our military Navy SEALs um, talk about the Thai cave rescue, and all of a sudden came in with all this technical knowledge around scuba diving rescue. And I mean, where else are you going to hear that? I mean, I don't know. There's just the facts that would come up during all of our discussions and the real life experience. And it just really helps you open your mind and realize that there are so many people that can help you co create whatever you want to do going forward.
You have a favorite Section C tradition, something you did as a section?
Oh, I do love our chant. It's from Remember the Titans, and I mean, I'm obviously a sports fan. That was one of my favorite movies growing up. I'm from a big football family, so I do think that was special. Once I realized in the first couple of weeks that that's where our chant come from, and even later today, actually, we're teaching that chant to the next class.
That's right. This is the section reveal day.
Hmm. It is.
Do you remember that day as part of your first year experience?
I do, I do. I remember thinking, "What did I get myself into?" The section rep from the year before came in, she was a gymnast from Utah and just was doing all these walking handstands everywhere, and it was overwhelming in a great way, but it gave us an immediate community, it gave us a place, a WhatsApp group where we could all start communicating right away, um, so it was a deep dive right away, but I really enjoyed it.
And we also had your Section C walking handstand person on the podcast too. So
Yeah,
listeners
Shannon McNatt.
want to go back and listen to that. No handstands were involved in the podcast. I'll mention, but that is not surprised to hear that that's something that she could do given her
Mhm.
background.
Yep.
So you mentioned you came to Darden with this entrepreneurial interest. How did you explore that during your first year? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, I was really lucky to have Ellie Jamieson in my corner in the beginning. She immediately got me connected to KPI, which is a women's founders group here at Darden. It was started by the late Damon DeVito and then taken over by Jim Zeffaletti. Um, First and foremost, I think that's been my most influential group being here at Darden. It's a dedicated group of students that are actively working on their business and holding each other accountable every 2 weeks. So in addition to having that structure and keeping us on track, because it's so easy to just get really just to immerse yourself in school and the classwork. I mean, there's always enough work to keep you busy and reading if you want to be. So it was nice to have that reminder that we could do both. And even better, they became close friends. So that was a huge help, especially when we were in core and didn't have a choice of electives yet that could really bring us into the classroom in entrepreneurship. But those came later in the year. I don't know exactly what the setup is for the first years this year, but I was able to start doing that in Q4. And then there's also Batten Institute. And throughout the year, there's something called UVA's Entrepreneurship Cup, E-Cup. And it's three different stages. There's a concept stage in the fall, a discovery stage in the winter, and a launch stage in the spring. And I would say second to KPI just because it's hard to, succeed without a community. Having those tests and having to really clearly communicate your concept and your ideas, your vision to a group of people that aren't in the weeds in it with you, that really helped me refine my value proposition and really gave me a chance and a lot of great pitch practice throughout the year. So I know that that was really big for me.
Did you do all three phases of the ECUP?
I did. I made it into the finalist stage of concept and launch, so I somehow skipped discovery, but that means I still have a chance to go back and do them all again my second year, which is fun.
What does it look like from a participant standpoint to participate in the ECUP? What are you doing to get ready to participate in that?
Yeah, well, Batten provides workshops to help you get ready, which is super helpful at each stage. I think for the concept stage, they, at least for us, brought in someone to teach us what makes a good pitch. Just because you're just submitting something, an application online, and if you're a finalist, then you get to pitch for a minute, and from there, the winners are chosen. Um, so that's pretty similar for each stage. I know for the launch stage, we had to have an executive summary or a one pager. So they brought in someone who's in VC that is like, this is what investors want to see in a one pager. So the Charlottesville community is a huge part of eCup. It's not just UVA. Everyone's coming in and bringing in their knowledge and their network and their resources. So they help you feel prepared. It can feel overwhelming when you first see it all in the beginning, but you just take it day by day, and usually it's usually due on a Friday, and videos might be due on a Sunday, so you're not too overwhelmed between class and trying to do this too.
Yeah, what was it like pitching? Is that something you had much experience with, or was this really kind of your first time pitching your idea?
Yeah, I hadn't pitched my idea too much. The first, the concept stage, I'm sure some of the judges now will laugh. I blacked out. I missed what I had memorized. I had no idea what I was doing. I had practiced it, but not clearly not enough. And I think that was just such a great starting point because it only got better after that, to the point where I was rewriting my pitch, 2 hours before launch, the launch phase in April, and then knocking that one out of the park. So I think it just goes to show the growth you can have here in a year. I do like speaking something that's memorized. Maybe I've gotten better at over the year. Uh, but yeah, they and everyone, the community here. I mean, there would be tons of us in learning team rooms, just rotating, listening to each other's pitches, giving feedback, and really just being that tester audience before we would go live.
Yeah, it's got to be hard though. You got a minute? Does he say a minute to make your pitch essentially?
Yeah, some are a minute, some are a minute and a half. It really depends, but usually they're just trying to get through the finalists and keep everyone engaged. And the judges already know more from the application, so they already have sort of the backstory going into it.
Yeah, it's a little different than say Shark Tank, where you've got seemingly like 10, 15 minutes there and you get all those questions and yeah, not quite the same deal.
No, and you don't have to give up equity to win the grant money. So also a plus here.
Yeah, another key difference. So, um, what is the KPI Club in terms of activities? We've had people on here who talked about it and sort of referenced how important it was to them. Um, Mentioned Jim's involvement. What does it look like, to be a member of that? How are y'all helping, supporting each other? Are y'all doing programming? Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, it's actually a pretty simple setup. And I think we're still adhering to Damon DeVito's original structure. But we meet every 2 weeks. The only two rules are that you have to be actively working on a venture and you can only miss one or two meetings per semester. So we're really trying to create a consistent group that's engaged, knows you, knows what's going on with your project, and then can give more thoughtful feedback. So we usually have two people or one or two people leading the group. I think last year it was Kiri Chang, and I know Ellie was off and on depending on what was happening with Play Henry, but I know she was part of that leadership crew. Adair Maynard, who is the president of the Entrepreneurship Club at the full-time Darden this upcoming year, and I will be co-leading it this year. But basically, we give everyone, depending on how many people are there, 5 to 7 minutes to talk about what they had accomplished the previous 2 weeks, what they're planning to accomplish the next 2 weeks. That's the accountability part. And then to practice their effectual asking, which if anyone at Darden knows about effectuation, it's a pretty big deal here, thanks to Sarah Sarasvathy. But we always are asking each other how we can help each other, and it really just gives us a space to help each other out. And then Jim, of course, comes in as serial entrepreneur with all of his wisdom and experience. And I definitely wouldn't have had as successful of a launch if it weren't for Jim and for the KPI girls. So I'm really thankful for them.
Yeah, I also plug that we've had Jim on the podcast as well, talking about his class, his background in entrepreneurship. You're right, serial entrepreneur. So, what is effectual asking? I think some of our listeners may be wondering, like, okay, I know what it means to ask someone. I don't know what it means to effectually ask someone.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I don't know if I'll ever fully understand it as well as Saris, but one example I can give was during her effectuation class. I said, "Hey, everyone, I just launched. I need some emails. If you could all please sign up and subscribe to my newsletter, that would be great." And Sarah said, "No, no, no. Let's make this more effectual. Everyone sign up and then sign up 10 of your friends." So it's very specific. It's a way to bring in even more people. And I think it's just a way to set goals and figure out how you can bring more people to your space to co-create with you.
All right, yeah, effectuation is a big deal here at the Darden School of Business. It's really the framework that a lot of the entrepreneurial activities are rooted in. And you will learn about that here at Darden if you take the entrepreneurship electives and work with the Batten Institute. So Kelly, how'd you spend your summer?
I was here in Charlottesville doing the iLab incubator. It was one of the reasons I came to Darden, and I was really grateful to get in. So it was a little bit of a different program this year, whereas I believe in years past it was in person every week. But they wanted to test something out this year. So we were actually in person only 3 weeks of the summer and then had virtual programming on the off weeks. So it was still a 10-week program. We were still together 3 of those weeks, one of which was at the end and presenting our pitches in the rotunda, which is an incredible experience being in such a historic building and, trying to find some people to work with. But otherwise, we were here in our very own iLab at Darden.
Nice. Was it helpful to you? How did your business sort of grow or develop over those 10 weeks?
Yeah, I think from one side, there were about 30 of us founders and ventures in the program. And it wasn't just from Darden, it's from all different schools at UVA. It's alumni. So we had someone from the School of Architecture, someone from the School of Nursing, Darden alumni from 5 or 6 years ago. So I think one, just having that community again was incredible and being able to network. For example, one person had a connection to a potential partner that would help me, and I had one that would help him, so we just introduced each other, and next thing you know, we're both on different partnership paths, and that wouldn't have happened if we hadn't had that space. Um, Jason and the team, really everyone, Anna, Anya, they all brought in, and MJ, who's unfortunately retired, but we're gonna miss her. They also brought in incredible mentors for us, both as entrepreneurs and residents, to lead our virtual programming as well as our individual mentors. And they matched me to the perfect person. So again, it was really, it's about the community and the network, but it was also about having time over the summer instead of trying to work an MBA internship, which I think we all know is probably not 40 hours a week. It's probably a bit more because you're trying to prove yourself and get that full-time offer. It really just allowed me to have that time where I'm not distracted by class or an internship and really make some progress so I can try to pursue this full-time after I graduate.
Yeah, some of the people you mentioned there, Jason Brewster, Anna Fife, also have been on the podcast. Just sharing all this with people. If you're interested in entrepreneurship, definitely go back and check out those episodes. We talked with Jason a lot about iLab Incubator, his experience in startups, and all the perspective that he brings to that work. And Anna, she works as kind of as director of Batten initiatives, essentially working on a number of things, including the Batten Scholars Program, which is out there for full-time MBA, part-time MBA, and executive MBA students. So, Kelly, where do things stand with your venture right now? Sort of on the back end of the iLab incubator, how are you thinking about things?
Oh gosh, I don't know if you've also interviewed Rick Kulo, but he's been an integral part of all of our entrepreneurship classes, sitting in, sharing his experience, as well as I think being part of the iLab for the last 11 or 12 years or so. Um, we were taking a walk the other day and sort of setting the scene for what second year would look like, so we could hit the ground running after graduation. And um, I think there's so much that I'm trying to accomplish with my business, and there's so many moving pieces. So to have someone who's just an expert in this field help me lay out my priorities and help me weigh my energy, figure out what feels right and feels like a priority. That's something I wouldn't have done before Darden. I would have just tried to do it all and realized this is crazy. I'm going to continue building out my team. So I'm an equitable sports media company, Fairway to Green. So I'm in the process of bringing on an editor and a few writers right now to just help keep the content consistent when I go back to school in a week. And then I also thankfully have an intern from the summer returning to keep my social media alive and well. She's been incredible, and also a grad student, not a business student, unfortunately. Otherwise, she would be at Darden, but she's doing something else somewhere else. But my major goal this summer was to get a team in place so that not everything would drop off when I go headfirst into all my finance classes this quarter.
Do you cover primarily golf, only golf, other sports? What does it look like?
Yeah, golf seemed like the best starting place just because that's the industry I've been in 13 years. I've been playing it for 20, and obviously that's where a lot of my connections are too. But I do hope to expand to other sports soon. And when events like the Olympics come up, I mean, everyone just wants to read everything about the Olympics. And I had an opportunity to see a few events. So I've been able to post some fun recap videos on social, and I'm looking forward to sharing more of the written experiences in our newsletter.
Yeah, can people, you have a website? How do people, learn more about Fairway to Green?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's fairwaytogreen.com, TO for the two. There might be a possible rebrand in the future, but for now, the whole idea is that we're the fairway to green or equal investment in sports. So we're really just trying to create a holistic audience for women's sports, male and female readers, and really just start growing the sport as a whole.
Excellent. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit more about your plans for second year. Started to touch on some of those in your last answer, but what are you looking forward to in second year? What are you excited about?
Yeah, at first, we have a club fair at the end of first year, or not a club fair. Well, we have one of those too, but an electives fair. And I came from a marketing background. I'm really interested in the psychology behind leadership and people management. And I was immediately drawn to those tables. But I went to all of them. I was doing my due diligence, and I ended up at an accounting table. And I told one of the professors there, "Oh, I have no background in accounting, so I'm probably not going to take a lot of these." And he's like, "That's exactly why you should take those classes." And it completely switched my mindset. And I realized that I knew I was here to learn. But I realized that this was the time to put in the work to understand finance and accounting better. And I think miraculously, if all goes to plan this next year, I'm actually going to graduate with a concentration in finance. And that's just such a 360 from 10 years ago. And in undergrad, I was like, get me out of this class. So I think that's a testament to the professors here. They really are incredible. They make it um, easy to understand, and your classmates too. There are definitely people that come from those backgrounds that can help you. And then there's also people that aren't from those backgrounds that ask questions that really clarify things for you. And I think that's what makes Darden special. So with that said, I'm definitely taking a lot of finance and accounting classes this next semester. I haven't fully mapped out my next semester, um, but I do know it's probably going to be more entrepreneurship based. I was taking Jim's venture velocity class this fall, but I was able to get into Dean Beardsley's sports and business maximizing leadership class, which is Jim was like, it perfectly aligns with what you're doing. Take my class in the spring, take his now. And so that was unfortunate because I want to be in Jim's class all the time. But I'm really excited to be in Dean Beardsley's and be able to pursue an independent study in the spring. And I think the spring will be a huge jump or a springboard for my entrepreneurship endeavors.
All right. Well, last question for you. Um, Piece of advice for our prospective student listeners, something you would encourage them to think about as they go forward on their own MBA journeys.
Call Brett. He will help you navigate the process if you're applying last minute like me. But in all seriousness, don't let timelines worry you. I mean, I decided to get my MBA in 2 weeks, and now it's a crazy story to tell. But if you have that gut feeling like it's the right move for you, don't be afraid to call and see what you can make happen. And then also in the application process, and this will probably sound cliche, but be yourself. Your authenticity is what's going to get you accepted into Darden. They really create a culture here that has so many backgrounds and personalities, but the one thing in common is everyone is really generous and kind and respectful. So if you can really show that in your application and show some interesting experience that you can, contribute to the value here at Darden, you're going to be in great shape.
Yeah, I love that advice, Kelly. I think sometimes when people get into the application process, they feel like they have to become some like typical business school applicant, right? They kind of try to write the essays that they think we want to read. They try to present in a way that they think we want them to present, and they stop being themselves. And so, to your point, like, what we were really interested in is who you are as a whole person. The application is your chance to introduce yourself to our admissions committee to give us a chance to get to know you better. And the best way to do that is to really make sure that who you are and what matters to you and what you've accomplished and achieved is really coming forward in the application. And then we'll read that and we'll say, gosh, this is somebody we'd like to get to know a little bit better get invited to an interview, and the interview is a great opportunity for us to get to know you even better, for us to understand your motivations, the why of your story, what's led you to make the choices that you've made, and how you see an MBA and Darden fitting into your career goals, short-term and long-term. But the best applicants are those who really embrace the opportunity to be themselves, to be authentic through the process. And I think if you do that, you will feel like you've given this your best shot.
Definitely. And I know that without your encouragement, Brett, when I called you thinking I was too late and you saw my resume and was like, you know what, you should give this a shot. I really didn't think I had a chance of getting into Darden. And now I'm absolutely loving it here. So thank you for that. I needed that little push.
It's an easy call to take, easy question to answer. So we're thrilled you're here, Kelly, and exciting to hear about all the things that are happening for you and your venture, and look forward to hearing more about Fairway to Green. So good luck in the year ahead.
Thanks, Brett. Appreciate it.
And that was my conversation with Kelly Okun, second-year student in our full-time MBA class of 2025. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We've reached at Darden, that's DARDEN, at virginia.edu. Until next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.